Look at this cockfight. Here it is. One of the most popular attractions for wealthy planters around Halifax was cockfighting. In 1786, the town hosted a 3-day cockfighting match with birds from the area and southern Virginia. The cockfights brought hundreds of people to Halifax for the occasion. Wow, look at this. It's a circus act in the colonial era. Checkers, skittles, backgammon, and chess. Dice games. I guess there was some gambling going on back then as well as drinking. In the cards. Among the most common card games played in colonial North Carolina were twist, all fours, piquet, and quadrille. I'm not familiar with any of those. It's hard to read. Tavern drinks. Common tavern drinks included a variety of beers from Europe, New York, Philadelphia, as well as brew and Madeira, clary port, rum. Flip was a common drink created by filling a 1-quart pitcher 2/3 full of strong beer and adding enough sugar and molasses to give it a sweet taste. Flip. I guess that's what they would do after drinking too much of that, huh? And look at these mugs here. Silver mug. And what's this, a punch bowl? Yeah, a punch bowl. Deceitful gaming. Wager was usually part of the games played in colonial taverns. Billiards, dice, cards. Often large debts were incurred, and tavern keepers were often forced to add a player's losses to the account. Man, look at this. It looks like a fight going on here. At times, the legislature sought to prevent unlawful gaming. In 1753, the Assembly condemned all games of chance in the public houses except billiards, bowls, backgammon, chess, and draughts. Table games. Wow, what's going on here? This looks like they're got a little disagreement about their backgammon game. Look at those large dominoes made out of wood. Don't know what that is. Oh, it's cards. Card press. Keep items pressed and prevent warping. Check out the key here. Isn't that cool? It's a functional key. This area is huge.
Many of the wealthy planters from the Roanoke Valley established themselves as leaders in the colony's politics. In 1776, with the American Revolution in full swing, Halifax hosted 2 meetings of the colony's Provincial Congress. It was during the 4th Provincial Congress held in Halifax that a resolution, now known as the Halifax Resolves, was adopted. The report, signed on April 12, 1776, was the first official action for independence by any colony. It stated in part, "Resolved, that the delegates for this colony in the Continental Congress be empowered to concur with the delegates of the other colonies in declaring independency. It was thus fitting that North Carolina's first public reading of the Declaration of Independence later occurred in Halifax, and today the North Carolina flag bears the signing date of the Halifax Resolves. Throughout the war, Halifax served as a military depot and recruiting center for Patriot troops. But except for brief occupation by Lord Cornwallis's troops on their march to Virginia, the town saw very little action. After independence was won, the 5th Provincial Congress met in Halifax, adopting the state's first constitution and appointing Richard Caswell as the state's first governor. Halifax continued to be the center of activity in the Roanoke Valley. Wiley Jones, a local planter and patriot, enjoyed horse racing at his personal track. Cockfights, including one with more than 50 birds, drew spectators from throughout the area. And William R. Davie, a resident of Halifax and Revolutionary War hero, pushed for the formation of the University of North Carolina and established himself in state and national politics. As a political and economic center, Halifax also saw an increase in social activities. Elegant dinners and balls were commonplace, and the gentlemen usually discussed horse racing and politics at one of the many taverns in town. The result was a small plantation society that developed among the upper-class citizens of the Halifax region.
Much better than even Richard expected. The gentlemen dined last night at Mr. Jones's, and I am sure the only subject discussed was horses. Lucy and myself were in a peck of trouble for fear they should return drunk. Just as we were undressed and going to bed, the gentlemen arrived and we had to scamper, both of them being tipsy. I have been very agreeably entertained this evening reading a novel called Malvern Dale. I have a piece of advice to give which I have before urged. That is to read something improving. Books of instruction will be 1,000 times more pleasing than all the novels in the world. I own myself I am too fond of novel reading. I have for the first time in my life just read Eloisa. I have heard my Polly extol it frequently, and curiosity led me to read it. The poetry I think beautiful, but do not like some of the sentiments. Some of Eloisa is too amorous for a female, I think. The weather has been unseasonably dry, though a steady rain is falling.
Slavery was a vital part of the plantation society which developed around Halifax. Blacks provided the labor force on which the economy of the region was based. Though slaves made up the largest part of the black population, Halifax had an unusually high percentage of free blacks. Many owned property and were generally farmers, though some were skilled craftsmen, such as coopers, carpenters, and blacksmiths.
Just a few more hits, and this shoe should be ready for one of Mr. Barnes' fine racehorses. It's got to be just so, or else Mr. Barnes will be taking his business to someone else. Working on your own can be mighty hard. I've got to be twice as good as other folks just to get work. I don't reckon I should complain too much. I've been smithering since I turned 16. I've got my own house and my own shop. If they keep passing laws to hold me back and keep me from working like I want, I don't reckon I'll keep much. Let's see now. I reckon I need to start on those hinges for Mr. Austin next.
But towns come and towns go. Halifax's place among the leading towns of the state soon would begin to decline. As early as 1791, George Washington had visited the village and noted in his diary that the place seems to be in a decline. In 1835, the new state constitution shifted more power to the west, thus limiting the area's political power. A few years later, the new railroad bypassed Halifax, making the river port obsolete. Finally, the end of slavery destroyed the antebellum plantation society, and along with it, the lifeblood of the Halifax upper class. Halifax continues to be the county seat and center of local government. But today, the town revolves around its historic district, which recalls the town's days as the region's driving force. During its peak, Halifax boasted of many shops and businesses. Today, the clerk's office, Eco Tavern, and the 1838 jail are among the many restored buildings in Halifax. A unique archaeological exhibit is housed over the foundations of the home of Joseph Montfort, a man of high social and political standing in 18th century North Carolina. Among the homes open for tours is the Owens House, home of a leading merchant of the early 1800s. The Burgess House is a former law office, which now overlooks what was once the busy marketplace of Halifax. And the Sally Billy House, built about 1808, was once the home of one of the Roanoke Valley's leading planters. Throughout the year, special interpretive displays and demonstrations bring back the time when the social, political, and economic well-being of the region depended on Halifax. Despite its many changes, the historic area recalls that period when Halifax was truly the hub of the Roanoke.